Today we're talking about money. Every time you scan a QR code, make an online payment, swipe your card, every time money is transferred digitally, sensitive data travels with it. We're talking about card numbers, PINs, account details, and that's precisely the data that hackers target. Now, protecting that data is the job of payment security. It's an entire industry built around the rules, the technology, the audits, and the investigation of payment fraud. Now, technology doesn't really differentiate. Over the last 2 decades, advancement in tech has given equal impetus and tools to beef up security, as well as to those who are intent on breaching it. And AI has telescoped this evolution exponentially. Quantum computing promises to upend every safeguard we've ever put in place. Now, our guest today has seen the entire timeline unfold in real time. Now, Mr. Darshan Shantamurthy is the founder, chief executive, and chairman of CISA. Now, this is one of the handful of companies that's been certified as a payment forensic investigator. You set up CISA in 2006. I was thinking about it. I was like, well, what cyber threats were we really concerned about in 2006? Now, how dramatically has this threat landscape changed over these last 20 years?
See, first of all, the channels of payments back then in 2006 were very few, right? You had just the cards or, for that matter, some amount of check payments. Payment form factors of payments were limited. But fast forward 20 years, now we've got multiple form factors of payments, right? Ranging from QR code payments to SWIFT, to crypto payments to Bitcoins. The payment ecosystem has changed. Even the business models have changed. Literally every company accepts payments today.
Right? I mean, everybody is running on software now, right? So everybody is basically susceptible. So, I'm curious, 20 years back when you started CISA, did you foresee a scenario like you have today?
We knew that the payments would become, ubiquitous. So the trends was very obvious, but we didn't know that it would take off in such a big way, and especially India.
I think that surprised the entire world, in fact, how quickly we've seemed to have adopted this. But so CISA did publish this digital threat report last year. Now, was there something in there that even caught you by surprise? And what was sort of the biggest takeaway that came out of that report?
In terms of the kind of fraud vectors that are happening globally, not just in India, but on a global scale, and how enterprises have to really upskill. We're speaking about the Mythos thing. I think that those are things which we spoke about in the DTR report already.
So you guys identified basically AI-powered or AI-driven threats as being paramount. Am I getting that right?
Absolutely. And even the fact that applications have to be patched.
Right.
One of the key things that we spoke about, because it came out very clearly, as you rightly said, Miraj, we are a forensic investigator and we do a lot of forensic investigations. We see this being used always by intruders, that they reverse engineer an exploit or a patch that has been released as an exploit.
I see.
And penetrate into organizations. And we saw this window at that point in time shrinking.
Okay, so obviously I'm assuming that CISA is digitally extremely secure, but if you were running some other kind of startup, what is the cyber threat that would keep you up at night?
I think, first of all, one of the key things is you need to have multiple, what we call as a defense in depth, right? I mean, you just can't be happy with just one layer of security. An enterprise to defend has to get everything right, whereas an intruder has to get only one thing right in order to penetrate the network. So it's kind of not a level playing field when you have to defend a particular network.
Right.
So having said that, I think one of the key things that we would definitely be very cautious about is the identity of super users at the end of the day, right? Because once you get an identity of a super user, you literally can navigate into any part of the organization. So these are users who typically have a lot more power. So typically when it happens, when you see in breaches,
right,
people, intruders generally enter as a basic user and try to go up the administrative privileges and go into be a super administrator. And when you are a super user, you literally can get a free access to the environment.
Right.
And you can do actions which can then be, for example, you can delete your own activity logs, which will become very difficult for an investigator like us to find out what really happened. Today, you really don't have threats, not just from the outsiders, but also from insiders, right? At the end of the day, you have contractors, you have employees, and especially the larger the organization, you have a lot more internal employees also accessing a lot of assets, and
Right.
you don't know what can go wrong.
Right.
And third, of course, is the fact that you need to stack up the layers of defense so that at the end of the day, you're able to trace this and immediately respond to your point that you should have a response mechanism. So one of the key things that we also advocate a lot is to detect and respond.
Okay, moving on. Quantum computing. Now, it's beyond the purview of this program to really get into how that's going to change things. Suffice to say that it's basically going to upend all our encryption across the board. Now, what are your thoughts about that and this Q day, the day that that's going to happen, which seems to be this vague day sometime in the future? When do you see that happening?
The only difference in a Y2K and a Q day is that the day was known for Y2K, and
Right.
Q day can be tomorrow, can be 3 years from now, can be 5 years from now. So that's anyone's guess. But the kind of pace at which things are moving
Right.
with quantum,
Right.
I think it's only a matter of time. The store now and harvest later threat, which typically is one threat which is being spoken about, which
Right.
is what people say is that you kind of store all this encrypted data
Right.
and then decrypt it later when quantum capability has come to light, can expose a lot of information.
Explain to me, how can you possibly encrypt data against quantum computing? How do you know what quantum computing won't be able to decrypt? How do you prep for something like that?
NIST has already published a lot of what we call as post-quantum cryptography (PQC) algorithms,
Okay.
which organizations can implement. And there's a whole set of skills that needs to be brought in, and which the market needs to get addressed
Right.
for helping organizations navigate through this post-quantum world. Every problem comes with a huge opportunity. And if we are able to build quantum security professionals, the world is going to need it.
If you are an Indian company using something like AWS or Azure or Google, which a large part of our industry does, and those get breached, so then how do you manage security when you are reliant on external providers like that? And also, what does that say about digital sovereignty and Atmanirbhar Bharat?
So there are two parts to this, right?
Sure.
The first part is, how does it happen in case of a forensic investigation on these cloud hyperscaler infrastructure? They operate in India, so obviously they are governed by the Indian rules and regulations. So they do provide and they will support for any forensic investigation, because at the end of the day,
They have
to abide with the law of the land.
I see.
So I think that is taken care of. Second is on a sovereign basis, then it's a different conversation. I see a lot of companies investing, massive amount of money in India for building data centers. And with whatever is happening globally, India can be the data center, center for the entire world. Second is, where do we stand as becoming a AI powered? What is our ability to develop AI models? And Government of India has also taken multiple initiatives in that direction.
Right.
Second is, how can we do AI security? And where CISA kind of organizations play a role is, where we are taking a responsibility is, how can India lead the AI security wave?
I'm interested though. So now you've been doing this for 20 years. You have been doing specifically cybersecurity. Now, does this experience over the last 20 years give you a window into the future, or is it too amorphous? Is there any way to know what the world will look like in 10 years when it comes to cyber threats?
One of the key things that I would definitely be looking at is agents and humanoid, AI systems playing a very, very big role as we go forward. We already have a hardware security lab, and we are very forward-looking and trying to build security around humanoid robots. Yeah.
Okay, Darshan, one last question. So not enterprises, I know you're enterprise-oriented, but individuals, what is your safety checklist for an individual when it comes to their digital security, when it comes to swiping a card or making online payments? Do you have a personal checklist that you follow that we could sort of, that you could tell our viewers?
You need to pause before you do anything. You get a call, you need to click share a OTP or share anything of that kind. It's one of the reasons why even the UPI payments are being thought of at least stalling for an hour before you make payments. Otherwise, it's just being circumspect of everything that is happening around. We live in a very interconnected world, and we just have to use our common sense.
I wasn't expecting that pause. It's like, don't do things on automatic pilot. Take a moment and think about what you're doing. That's good advice. I think, a lot of us are quite complacent about this, and we do a lot of stuff without thinking about it, but there really is no room for complacency when it comes to our digital security and our financial security. That's about all we have time for today. Thank you very much, Darshan, for coming on board, and we shall talk again soon. Until next week, bye-bye.